The Subcommittee for Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and Related Agencies will come to order, and good morning to everybody. I apologize for being late. We were in another meeting we couldn't get out of right then. Welcome to the Subcommittee to Markup the fiscal year 2026 Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and Related Agencies Appropriation Bill. Welcome, Chairman Cole. Is Ms. Deloria here? Yes, good. And we're glad to have both of you here with us today. And pleased to present the fiscal year 2026 Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and Related Agencies Bill today. I know the process at this point has been a little non-traditional, but it is important that we do our jobs as appropriators and get moving on this critical legislation. I recognize as the process unfolds and we receive further documentation on the President's fiscal year 2026 budget, we will take under consideration, including those proposals aimed at improving efficiencies. The bill before us provides the Department of Veterans Affairs and related agencies just over $134 billion in non-defense discretionary funding, as well as $300 billion in mandatory funding to fulfill our obligation to our veterans. As I have stated on many times we have an obligation to ensure our veterans get benefits and the care they have earned. This bill does that while also addressing the critical issues affecting veterans, including homelessness, mental health services, and takes care of our women veterans. The bill also makes critical investments totaling $180 billion in infrastructure for our service members' needs to work and live. The committee will also prioritize Indo-PACOM and the quality of life investments in fiscal year 2026. As always, we have kept our promise to those who put our nation first. To close, I want to thank the staff of the subcommittee. They've done yeoman's work, and I would also note that we received nearly over 3,000 member requests touching on every aspect of the bill. We all recognize the importance of the bill as it funds essential military construction projects, supports veterans' health care and benefits, and bolsters the national security through our investments. As we attempted to address the Republican and Democrat members' requests within this available budget, though, a community project funding program funding and through that funding and the bill and report language. I look forward to working with all of you as the bill moves forward, and I will ask you to support this. I ask you to support this legislation. Now it's my pleasure to recognize the ranking member of this subcommittee, Ms. Wasserman Schultz, for her opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Carter, for yielding, and thank you, Chairman Cole and Ranking Member DeLauro, for joining us and for your commitment to the priorities that we work so hard to fulfill on this committee. I want to start by acknowledging that this subcommittee has had a long-standing tradition of bipartisanship. I often say that you can really switch between Judge Carter and myself chairing this subcommittee, and you will basically see the same bill, save for some outlier issues each fiscal year. We don't agree on everything, but we've always agreed that the needs of our service members and our veterans come first. Judge Carter, I have appreciated working with you. We have fought side by side against the common adversary, the United States Senate, on the House's priorities on many an occasion, and many times been successful because we are often far more prepared than our friends on the other side of the Capitol. Yeah, right. Maybe if they got started a little earlier on their bills, no matter who's in charge, it would help. So putting the priorities in this bill for our members, for all the members, and, even though this is a broader set of topics, I mean, we all fight for veterans and make sure that we can take care of them. We all want quality of life for our service members, but we also have unique needs in our individual districts. Some have more defense installations, others have more veterans installations, some have a lot of veterans, some don't have as many, but we all come together and bring our unique perspectives. And I know the chairman worked hard to produce a work product under difficult and, as he says, non-traditional circumstances. Unfortunately, this year, I do have serious concerns about the bill before us today, and I will not be able to give the bill my support. First, this bill is hurtling us down the path toward VA privatization, straight out of the Project 2025 playbook. It transfers a record amount of funding from VA medical services to community care, a 67% increase, pushing veterans into private care, even though study after study shows that when given the options, veterans prefer receiving medical care at the VA. In 2024, during the Biden administration, veteran trust in VA healthcare rose to a record 92%. I understand that there's a need for community care, especially among our rural veterans and veterans who are having trouble getting appointments in a timely fashion. It's actually quicker now to get an appointment at the VA than it is to get an appointment in the community, and so this increase certainly seems unwarranted. But countless studies show that when veterans seek care at private hospitals and clinics, they wait longer to see providers, and the care that they get is not as high quality. Private providers are not specially trained to deal with veteran-centric issues like toxic exposures, and they often have a poor understanding of military culture. Private providers don't coordinate well with the VA either, leading to inconsistent, confusing, and often substandard care. We should invest more in the VA, provider recruitment and retention, not run with abandon towards privatization. Second, this bill fails to include guaranteed funding for the PACT Act's Toxic Exposure Fund, even though the administration requested it for FY27. Last year, this bill included guaranteed advance funding, which I supported and believe is a common sense thing to do. We promised our veterans with service-connected illnesses due to toxic exposure that we would ensure that they had health care through the VA. Advance funding provides the certainty VA needs to plan for and provide consistent, high-quality care for our veterans who were subjected to toxic exposures. Additionally, this bill fails to hold the administration accountable for its chaotic and illegal actions over the last few months. There are currently no provisions in this bill that require VA Secretary Collins to be held accountable for the mass illegal firings of dedicated VA employees, including employees that staff the Veterans Crisis Line. And this bill does nothing to rein in DOJ and protect veterans' sensitive personal information. I do appreciate Judge Carter and Chairman Cole and Ranking Member DeLauro that we all agree that we should protect the House's jurisdiction and make sure that the approval process is tightened and ensure that we are not just notified of transfers of hundreds of millions of dollars and that we be given a reprogramming request and an opportunity for approval. But this bill does nothing to stop President Trump from declaring an emergency as well, where none exists, and stealing funds from military construction projects, as he did in his first term, to fund a section of border wall on an already fortified military base. Without provisions to address these abuses, this committee's power of the purse is drastically weakened. And it sets a terrible precedent that I'm quite sure my Republican colleagues would not appreciate if a Democratic administration behaved in this way. On the military construction side, this bill underfunds military construction by $904 million compared to the president's budget request, and fails to fund some specific needs like installation resilience and NATO infrastructure commitments. We know that warming temperatures are having a devastating impact on our military installations, including sea level rise, recurrent flooding, hurricanes, and extreme weather, as well as extreme heat and drought. Florida is home to 3 combatant commands and over 20 military bases. During the first Trump administration, DoD completed a report on military bases most vulnerable to climate change. 8 Florida bases made that list. This bill includes $0 in dedicated funding to mitigate the damage that extreme weather has on a military installation and the readiness of the force. We have a major quality of life problem for our service members and their families, yet funding from these programs is being stolen for a fake emergency. This is an administration initiative, I want to make sure I underscore that, to fund an unnecessary wall and a paint job for Secretary Hegseth's government-furnished housing. and this bill does nothing to stop that, and it should. Finally, this bill includes a plethora of harmful poison pill riders, although thankfully some that were previously here are not now. It once again prohibits the VA from implementing its interim final rule to provide a woman's right to an abortion and abortion counseling. The message sent on that is clear. Republicans want to further limit women's access to health care. Never mind if abortion is in the best medical interest of the veteran. Disturbingly, Republicans think you should only have access to abortion if you're dying. So this bill has the government making personal medical decisions for veterans, not their doctor or the veteran themselves. It's a cruel, ironic way to treat those who fight for our freedoms. This bill undermines VA's ability to keep at-risk veterans safe by preventing VA from reporting a beneficiary to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. That helps keep guns out of the hands of those who are a danger to themselves or others and who are prohibited under federal law from purchasing or possessing firearms. This bill is in effect prohibiting the VA from following the law that is intended to protect veterans. Veterans make up about 1 in 5 adult firearm suicides, and we see an average of 4,600 veteran firearm suicides every year. It is tragic and unacceptable that this bill undermines our efforts to keep veterans safe. Lastly, we know that our veterans rely on government services outside of this bill. Without knowing the allocations for all 12 subcommittees, we have no idea how certain programs like financial aid at the Department of Education and housing assistance at HUD will ultimately fare in these bills. Given the Republican track record on their lack of support for funding beyond defense in this fiscal year, I can only assume that vital programs veterans rely on outside this bill will be axed. This is unacceptable, and I encourage my colleagues to be more transparent. Tell us what the subcommittee allocations are before we forge ahead with more markups. With all of these serious concerns, I cannot in good conscience support this bill. The subcommittee has a long-standing tradition of bipartisanship. I truly value my friendship with Chairman Carter and how well we work together. I know there are obstacles that I hope we can work through as we have in the past. And I hope that we can work together in good faith going forward to take care of our veterans, service members, and their families in the way they deserve. This bill sadly does not yet achieve that. Thank you, and I yield back.
I now recognize the ranking member of the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I won't take a lot of time. Thank you. Won't take a lot of time because obviously we'll be covering this matter shortly. I want to commend you and the subcommittee on the work that you've put into this bill. It certainly has my full support, and I look forward to advancing this through the full committee. But I also look forward to input from friends from both sides of the aisle, quite frankly. This is the first of our subcommittee markups for the full committee, and this is a process. And the one thing I can assure you is what's ever in front of you, it'll look different at the end than it does now. And that's just the nature of it. But you have to start the journey, and I commend you, Mr. Chairman, for starting that journey. And I know you and the ranking member have found common ground in the past, as she alluded to, and I'm hopeful that you will be able to do that once again. So I want to thank again the members of the committee for a job well done, and appreciate how hard you've worked and how seriously all of you on both sides of the aisle have taken our joint responsibility, the men and women that wear the uniform of the have worn the uniform of the United States, and that we've made commitments to. And I think this bill, moves us in the direction of keeping those commitments. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. I will now recognize ranking member of the full committee, Ms. DeLauro, for any remarks she may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to join you and the ranking member and the chair of the full committee this morning. This is, as Chairman Cole said, the first subcommittee markup for fiscal year 2006. And we do so in completely unprecedented times with the Congress's authority and this committee's relevance being challenged by a lawless administration. If it is true that there are Democrats, there are Republicans, and there are appropriators, then now is the time for appropriators to stand up and preserve our constitutional authority over the power of the purse. Since taking office, the Trump administration has illegally stolen funding appropriated by this committee and passed by the House and the Senate, passed by the Congress, and signed into law by the President. Was for programs and services across the federal government that help to grow the middle class, protect the working class, fuel small businesses, and make sure billionaires and mega corporations play by the rules and pay taxes. The president is not laser-focused on the cost of living crisis, he is actually making worse. He promised to fight for working families, but instead has put billionaires in charge of our government. They are attacking programs that support veterans and firing thousands of veterans who serve in our government in order to pay for tax cuts for billionaires. These cuts are not just numbers on a page, and they are not only felt in Washington, D.C. They touch every one of our districts, including my own. There are well over 100,000 veterans in Connecticut. My district hosts Connecticut's only VA hospital that performs inpatient care. That's the West Haven VA Medical Center. Staff at West Haven VA received resignation offers and Elon Musk's, quote, 5 things email. Among them are Renee Luno-Shekfi, a registered nurse, who says morale among the center staff has been impacted by this administration's tactics and policies. She said, and I quote, "I could tell you what I didn't do last week. Didn't take lunch a single day. Didn't take a 15-minute break a single day, because we are trying to do a lot with what little we have." West Haven VA Medical Center, like VA facilities across the country, they do not have too many staff or too much funding. It is already doing a lot with a little. But this administration has no boundaries when it comes to jeopardizing the programs and services the American people depend on, and that shamefully includes the programs that serve America's veterans. The bill before the subcommittee today will enact a key Project 2025 proposal by transferring billions of taxpayer dollars to private hospitals and clinics, leading to longer wait times, poor communication and coordination, diminished quality of care for veterans, and higher costs for taxpayers. This bill would worsen quality of life for service members and their families while putting veterans' safety at risk. While our military faces massive recruitment challenges, the bill underfunds military construction by nearly $1 billion, hurting our recruitment and retention and undermining our military readiness. And by undermining the ability to keep guns out of the hands of those legally barred from holding them, the bill endangers veterans' safety. The bill leaves military installations, service members, and their families vulnerable to climate change and worsening natural disasters by failing to include dedicated funding to strengthen military installations against these threats or to help them recover from past disasters. Defense leaders, including during President Trump's first term, have warned of the dangers that climate change posed to our military, and the tens of billions of dollars in damage to military installations from recent severe weather reinforces their point. Former Secretary Mattis warned that climate change threatened American interests and the Department of Defense assets around the world, and said climate change is, quote, a challenge that requires a broader whole-of-government response, end quote. The bill attacks women veterans, who are the fastest-growing group served by the Department of Veterans Affairs, with a policy rider that limits abortion access and prohibits abortion counseling. The women who volunteer to serve and defend our nation, to protect our country's most sacrosanct rights and freedoms, should not come home to find their medical care and family planning decisions being made by anyone other than themselves, their families, and their doctors. These riders do nothing but put us on a path of partisan division that will make it more difficult to come to an agreement on full-year bills. Ending fiscal year 2025 with an unprecedented full-year continuing resolution was a missed opportunity to invest in our veterans and in our service members. And I, too, like the ranking member, believe that not including the advance funding for the PACT Act says volumes about what kind of commitment that this administration has to those that have suffered the toxic burns, chemical and toxic exposure. And that piece of legislation was bipartisan and bicameral and was there to support all veterans. We should be working towards a bipartisan bill that can actually pass this year. And finally, the bill undercuts our commitments to our military partners. The Trump administration has already done a masterful job at alienating America on the world stage, turning our back on our closest allies. Yet, this bill goes even further, underfunding NATO infrastructure by almost $200 million, undermining the infrastructure projects our own troops in Europe rely on. Our credibility as a national security partner has been trashed by this administration, and now is no time to retreat from our alliances even further. The majority may suggest that they are supporting our veterans' needs with this bill alone, but we all know that it does not contain all of the programs that most vulnerable veterans depend on, programs and services from food assistance to education to health research, which this administration has illegally frozen and dismantled, and which their budget decimates funding for support for veterans around the country. Losing that support will mean abandoning our responsibilities and our promises to our nation's veterans. I cannot support this bill, but it is my deepest hope that we can improve the bill to support our veterans, our service members, and to support workers and their families. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. DeLauro. At this time, does any other member of this subcommittee wish to be recognized for opening remarks?
Mr. Bishop.
Go ahead, Mr.
Sanders,
Bishop.
Mr. Levin. Ms. Escobar.
Thank you, Chairman Carter, Ranking Member Watson Schultz. I want to make it very clear that I'm unable to support the FY26 Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Bill in its current form. Plainly put, it's not a good bill, and we can't say that we want to prevent veteran suicide, yet we prevent the VA from reporting veterans with documented mental health issues into the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. That's what the bill does. It makes it easier for veterans who are at risk of suicide or causing harm to others to purchase a firearm. We cannot build trust with our veterans when this bill does not provide advanced funding for the Toxic Exposure Fund. Advanced funding is a clear demonstration of our promise to provide our veterans the benefits that they earned and deserve. Without it, how do we maintain that trust? What guarantee do our veterans have that this funding will be provided in the future if it is not put forth in this advanced funding? The bill erodes the trust with our veterans population. All veterans deserve care. Our women veterans deserve essential medical services, including their constitutional right to abortion services. The bill denies our women veterans access to this essential care. This is a clear demonstration of the administration's lack of concern for women's rights. Our women veterans can fight for our country, but under this bill cannot have voice in their own health care. This is not taking care of veterans. DOGE and Project 2025 should not have a vote in the legislative branch decision-making process. By allowing the administration to direct how taxpayer money is being spent, eliminates the checks and the balances put in place by the Constitution. This bill is a reflection of the administration's Project 2025 privatization of veteran health care. Our veterans want to receive care at VA facilities. This has been documented time and time again. This committee should focus on funding to ensure that our VA medical centers are resourced by the best doctors, that they are modernized with the most advanced medical equipment, and that they're accessible to all of our veterans that are in need of the services. While the intention behind this appropriations bill should be to support veterans, this legislation instead prioritizes political messaging over the needs of our veterans. It cuts where we need to invest, deregulates where we need accountability, and most egregiously divides where we need to unite. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman. I can't support the bill in its current form.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the ranking member, and I sincerely want to say thanks on behalf of the junior enlisted Marines and sailors that I represent at Camp Pendleton. Thank you for improving housing, and thank you to all the work that went into the bill. However, that being said, I can't support the bill as it's currently written. I served on the Veterans Affairs Committee for 6 years before having the honor to join you on the Appropriations Committee. And I am absolutely committed to ensure that no veteran goes homeless or without a good job or without enough to eat or without the excellent health care that they have earned. And I fought over the 6 years on HVAC and will continue to do so against every attempt to privatize VA. I'm concerned this bill moves us towards doing that. Community care plays an important role in communities across the country, particularly those that don't have access to a VA hospital. And many veterans rely on community care for specialists that VA just doesn't have. But this bill shifts significant funding to community care that could better serve our veterans, in my view, if it was instead invested in the VA healthcare system. And unfortunately, I'm worried that this is part, as my colleagues have said, of the Project 2025 attempt to privatize VA. And you don't have to take it from me. I have a copy of Project 2025 if anybody wants to see it. Page 645 of this document outlines exactly what the plan would be to privatize VA. This comes on the heels of VA's plans to fire up to 80,000 workers, many of whom are veterans themselves. About a quarter of them are veterans themselves. You're talking about firing 20,000 veterans at VA. And on the heels of the hiring freeze we've already seen, which is already preventing local VA facilities from hiring the people they need to serve our veterans, this is not a good situation at all for VA right now. VA is losing employees without doing anything to recruit new ones. I'm hearing this personally from my local VA employees. Fewer VA employees means greater delays in veterans' benefits and services. It's not efficient, it's not acceptable, but it appears to be part of a bigger playbook, which is cut funding for critical programs and then let those programs wither on the vine, use the decline in services that those cuts caused to justify privatizing what should remain a public service. So instead of actually working to fix the problems within VA, the idea is to put our veterans on more private plans that, frankly, the American taxpayer is being overcharged for services that the VA can do better. So I hope as we head to the full committee markup, we can reallocate some of these funds towards VA construction. The other thing I'll say is far too many of our VA facilities need essential infrastructure upgrades, and that includes the hospitals and the C-box. And the other thing that everybody should know, and hopefully the folks around this table really will listen to this is unbelievably popular to improve veterans' infrastructure. There was a poll from Politico and Morning Consult. 86% of Democrats, 78% of Republicans, and 76% of independents supported modernizing veterans' hospitals. That was the single most popular infrastructure program across the board. Veterans have sacrificed for the country. Their health care should never be a political bargaining chip. Anything less is an abdication of our commitment to our veterans. And while I support much of the funding in the bill and I appreciate the work, I cannot support the bill as written. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Ranking Member, and to my colleagues on the committee. This is my first subcommittee markup. I am so delighted to be on the Appropriations Committee and really wanted to serve on this committee because I know we have a shared commitment to our veterans and to making sure that our military installations are up to par. But, Mr. Chairman, I too cannot support the bill as written, and it's my hope that we are able to make some improvements together to get it to a place where we can all come together in a bipartisan way to support it. I joined this subcommittee to fight on behalf of my community of El Paso, Texas, which is the proud home to Fort Bliss, one of the Army's largest installations, to fight for our military families and a veteran population that is over 50,000 strong. And to that point, again, I want to thank Chairman Carter for taking a look at my requests and for including many of them in this bill. I'm very grateful for that. My district is also home to thousands of federal employees who work tirelessly to serve our community and our country. And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention how alarming it has been to see the firing en masse of so many of our hardworking public servants in the federal government, many of whom are veterans. I have spoken with a number of them in my district who find it deeply troubling and hard to understand why they lost their jobs. And it really is something that all of us, with unanimity, should be speaking out against and making sure that we're fighting to restore those jobs and those hardworking Americans to the work that they do on behalf of our great nation. And if that weren't bad enough, House Republicans just passed a reconciliation bill which slashes healthcare and nutrition programs, and we know that that will add to the pain that our constituents are already feeling. Under the Trump administration, we've seen unprecedented chaos and disruption, not only to federal programs and grants, but also, again, to the lives of countless federal employees. I've been so deeply disturbed by this administration's reckless approach to enact the Project 2025 agenda, and in turn, undermining work to improve military quality of life, protect our military installations from increasingly frequent natural disasters due to climate change, benefiting corporations by directing massive funding to privatizing VA medical services, gutting the VA workforce, and so much more. In the wake of such harmful executive actions, this bill should proactively limit the ability of the administration to do further damage, yet it includes provisions I believe will do the opposite. My colleagues have mentioned the massive amount of funding to community care networks, which would undoubtedly result in privatization and outsourcing of VA services for our veterans. I echo those concerns, and I plead with the committee and my colleagues to speak to veterans in their own communities who will likely tell you that their VA is best suited to meet their healthcare needs. This bill also prohibits funding for implementation of the VA's final rule on reproductive care, which in states like mine of Texas, our women veterans rely on for abortion counseling and services, as they have no other means by which to access this care. But of all the poison pill writers in this bill, the most egregious, in my opinion, undermines the ability to better protect certain veterans who are found to be incapacitated to the point of requiring a fiduciary from being able to access firearms, even though they may pose risk to themselves and others in doing so. A host of research recognizes that one of the largest challenges to veteran suicide prevention efforts is easy access to lethal means. My community and my home state know all too well the devastating consequences of not being proactive on this particular matter. In January of 2023, a veteran in my community died by suicide in the parking lot of the El Paso VA facility. And just a couple of days ago, a VA police officer discovered a veteran in the driver's seat of his vehicle at the McAllen VA clinic who had died by suicide, his shotgun still positioned between his legs. These truly heartbreaking circumstances cannot continue, and addressing this is twofold: through delivery of urgent mental health care, as well as enhanced protections from lethal means for veterans experiencing mental health crises, just long enough to be able to save these veterans when they need it most. This outrageous provision, which essentially prohibits the VA from following the law, does the very opposite. It prohibits even the reporting to the federal NICS system that we use to facilitate background checks. Unfortunately, I don't believe this bill will push back against the Trump administration's Project 2025 agenda and the devastating impact it will have on the very populations we need to protect the most. I cannot in good faith support this bill when I know the veterans and military families in my community deserve far better. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Seeing no amendments, I'd like to recognize Mr. Rutherford for the purpose of making a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the bill be favorably reported to the full committee.
The question is on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and the motion is agreed.
Could ask for a roll call vote, please.
A recorded vote has been requested. All those in favor of a recorded vote, raise your hand. Sufficient number to support the recorded vote is ordered. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alford. Aye. Mr. Alford, aye. Ms. Bice. Aye. Ms. Bice, aye. Mr. Bishop.
No.
Mr. Bishop, no. Mr. Carter.
Aye.
Mr. Carter, aye. Mr. Cole.
Aye.
Mr. Cole, aye. Mr. Cuellar. No. Mr. Cuellar, no. Mr. Lauro.
No.
Mr. Lauro, no. Ms. Escobar. No. Ms. Escobar, no. Mr. Franklin. Aye. Mr. Franklin, aye. Mr. Guest. Aye. Mr. Guest, aye. Mr. Lalota. Aye. Mr. Lalota, aye. Mr. Levine. No. Mr. Levine, no. Mr. Rutherford.
Aye.
Mr. Rutherford, aye. Ms. Wasserman Schultz. No. Ms. Wasserman Schultz, no. Mr. Zinke.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Zinke, aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 9 and the noes are 6. The bill is favorably reported to the full full committee. I ask unanimous consent that the staff be permitted to make technically informed and conforming changes to the bill and the report. Without objection, so ordered. I remind the members to please leave the copies of the bill and report in this room at your desk. The copies of the bill and report with the technical and conforming changes will be delivered to all full committee members' offices no later than 3 days before the full committee markup. Thank you all for attending our meeting, and at this time, the committee is adjourned.